Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Unscripted Coding. Today our project is going to be looking at an open source project, just looking at the code, understanding what is happening, and we're probably not actually going to build anything. So the background here is right on your front page, your screen right now. This is the Hieroglyphics initiative from Ubisoft. Hieroglyphics are the language of ancient Egypt, and you can see kind of a quasi-example here. The very famous birds and people and, water. I think that's a bunny. Just images forming words. This is a language that's as old as 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years, depending on how you count it. And while Ubisoft was developing a video game set in ancient Egypt, that's Assassin's Creed Origins, they wanted to throw, I guess, some weight and figure out if machine learning can help translate ancient Egyptian. This came from 2017, and so I am so excited that we finally have some real updates here. Now, I don't want to get too much into it, but I just want to show you guys that this is something I care about a great deal. I know it sounds super niche, but what you don't realize is that in every single video so far that you've seen on this channel, right behind this chair is actually a hieroglyphics dictionary. So I didn't just pick this out of nowhere. This is something that I want to learn, that I've tried learning, that I know a little bit about. So yes, I just wanted to geek out there. But what came out of this is Google's Fabricius. I've been reading it Fabricus this whole time, but Fabricius tool. And that leads to this page. They have also open sourced Fabricius so that you can play around with the tools that help run this website. And so ultimately our project is going to be just looking at this page, seeing what we can learn, seeing what they've done, and trying to figure out what we can potentially do with it in the future. But before jumping right into the code, I think the best way to do this is to understand what Fabricius does. And so we can start the experience. They have a couple tools, just to learn a little bit about ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs to, I guess, play. I think you can send emojis, yeah. Hello. And they will give you a translation. That's pretty cool. Greetings to you. Let's send that over. And we have some text here. But that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is using work as a tool to actually help translate language. Now, I admit I played around with this before, so this isn't the first time I've seen it. But I haven't actually gone too much into it. So what it is a workbench to help you translate images from images of hieroglyphs. And we're just going to start a project here. Drag and drop an image. I have one prepared here. This is... See, I am second guessing myself whether I want to throw a history lesson along the way. But this is from the Dream Stele. This is a stone tablet in front of the Great Sphinx. Right between its two paws is a stone tablet that looks like this. It is erected by Thutmose the Fourth. see, I want to double check all of that, but one of the Tutmosis, I think it's the fourth, and basically tells a story that hopefully a lot of you have heard in social studies or history class. Basically, he fell asleep and he had a dream. The Sphinx came to him in the dream saying, please dig me out of the sand. If you do, I will make you king of Egypt. Now, that's kind of the grade 7 story. What the really interesting story is, there was a power struggle at the time, and this is how Thutmose the Fourth, I put asterisks there because I don't know if the number's right, but Thutmose the Fourth became pharaoh. He was arguably in the weaker position with his siblings, but when you claim a divine right, that trumps any kind of political ties, I guess. So it is a really interesting period in history. And so this stele tells that story that he had dreams from the Sphinx. Anyways, I am being very long-winded here, so let's skip to the tool. What you can do is start marking up segments of the text. And so I can imagine doing this all day, trying to get all of this text, but let's just mark a handful of them. Okay, I think 2 is enough. Okay, so what I need to do is activate this, and same with this one, turn them into active ones. And so what this tool does is, whether you have a stone carving or a picture or a painting, it's trying to convert it into a black and white text so that it's easy for the machine to recognize. And I don't know if a lot of you have done art, but there is relief, or I don't know what the opposite of a relief is. But basically you can either carve, say you want to carve this bee into a piece of rock. You can carve it and just draw the outline, or you can carve all around it so that the outline pops out. And that's why you would have that invert feature. Anyways, I think that's a pretty clear picture. Hopefully the AI can pick up on it, but we're just gonna get this next. Okay. And we got cookies again. How do I move on to the next page? Nope. Into generate. Okay, so now we have the images. We can touch it up a little. Now I'm realizing now that the picture I chose is just a bit pixelated, but I think this is as clear as it gets. I am working off somebody's very carefully drawn image. If the AI can't fix this, then I don't know what we're going to do. If it doesn't recognize something as clear as this, any random rock is going to be a real tough challenge. Anyways, we're just going to erase this little bit. This line is not part of the text. And finally, that was not a good job of erasing, so let me just keep going here. Okay, and then, be gone. And let's get a bigger brush here. This top part is part of the wings of, I think, that Sphinx, a flying Sphinx. And so that's not part of the text. We should erase that just to give the best odds possible for our machine learning algorithm. Okay, so we're going to go with the Analyze button. Okay, to begin sequencing glyphs, click and drag using the Marquee tool in the left workspace panel to auto-create glyphs or to create shapes with a polygon tool to create your own glyphs. This will be interesting. Now, I've played with other text before, and sometimes it has a real tough time sorting out the glyphs, and I don't blame the machine learning algorithm for that. It is incredibly difficult because Ancient Egyptian can read left to right, right to left, top to bottom. I don't think bottom to top. But the other thing is you can group it in all sorts of ways. You can have it stand up. The groupings can sometimes shrink or expand hieroglyphs to make it work. And sometimes think of some of the really fancy Bibles or religious texts. That first letter takes up half the page because they want a giant A, and then they start the text. Happens all the time in Ancient Egyptian. The person in that image also is a character. It's very strange. So what we've done here, what the problem here is that it didn't pick up that this is two separate glyphs. Over here, let's pick out another one. Okay, so it knows that this is two separate sentences. What I need to do is, oops. Okay. We want to edit the glyph. So that we capture the right one. Okay. And then we want another. So I remember I had problems here before as well because it was not obvious to me how I would add another glyph after the fact. So let's save the glyph. And then while we are working on this one, we have just another one as well. Perfect. So I think we had to click into this box and then move a glyph in there. So now we gotta move it into the right order. Oops. No, that's not right. What am I doing now? Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, this is very good. It picked up that's two separate words. And then the next one, I think, will be much more successful. Oh, I should zoom in so that you guys can get a better view of what is actually happening. Okay. And sentence number 2, word. Oh, that's very interesting. Why did it pick up two? Okay, so it picked up this little mark, and I thought I should have erased it, but picked up this little mark as a glyph. Let's clean that up. And I'm being, I think, very generous here doing all the cleanup work. It should have auto-picked it up when we use that square marquee tool. All right. I'm pretty happy with it. So now let us auto classify. Ooh, God, those are awful results. We are 1 for, what is that, 7 on the first sentence. Okay, let's move on to a second one. I mean, this one should be a gimme. Yeah, that's not great either. I mean, it picked up one of the two. I mean, hopefully the rest of you know what this is. This is the Ankh symbol. You know, the one Egyptian hieroglyph that I think most people would know. When you go to Egypt and get a souvenir, you might see an Ankh. It's a very popular symbol. All it means is life. So I'm surprised it picked up the wrong one. That is very disappointing, but let's take a look at what translations happen, because this is absolute nonsense. Auto-translate. And auto-translate. I don't think it's even trying. It's just separately translating just pieces of it. And oh, this one, it couldn't even get translation. I mean, to be fair, none of this actually makes sense. So let's try and fix this up. This one is a sedge. That is a plant. With 2 sets of leaves. This next one is tea. I think that is a loaf of bread. Food. Let's see. Loaves and cakes. X1. Perfect. Okay, this is a bee. Birds, no, invertebrates. Oh. Okay, so you can actually join all of these together for a single symbol here, but let's keep it separate, as we've done before. Loaf of bread again. Loaf over here. I don't know what this is actually, so I'm glad they've already put that in correctly. Oh, I think that's a basket. So these two are both the same thing. This is land. So I think N17 and N17. And in case you're interested in learning, there are really good books on how to read Ancient Egyptian. So this is one by Bill Manley. I actually have not read through this one yet, but I hear really good things about it. It's really quite interesting because there are hundreds and thousands of glyphs. Some of them are just variations of each other, but Gardner, one of the really well-known Egyptologists in history, decided to just classify all of them to make it really easy to search. And so obviously what is happening is they classified it incorrectly, unfortunately, gave you the next closest options. And honestly, these are terrible, terrible guesses. This one is okay. The 2 lines and the basket was obviously right, but like the bee looks nothing like, I don't know which god this is, or the 2 cobras, or a bunny. Like, Well, I guess maybe the bunny, but this is an awful guess. And then the other thing is like they should. Well, I mean, I need to be fair. Like this is shaped like a lot of different glyphs, so I don't know what this one is, but their next option is actually decent. So over here, it actually has an Ankh symbol in the glyph. So I don't know where it sees this hat around it. So this glyph, I think, is per, which is the house, and Ankh underneath, per Ankh, which is part of the temple. The library is the word I'm looking for. The house of life. The house and then the Ankh symbol of life. So just to tell you guys what this says, it says D Ankh, given life. Very common kind of greeting, I suppose. No, introduction. And this one is Nisut Biti. He, like the Sej and the B, which is kind of like their way of saying the king, and then Neb Tawi, which is Lord of the Two Lands. So given life, king of Egypt, Lord of the Two Lands. Very simple introductory type of language. So common, very poor picking. Oh, I'm sorry, I should actually finish this. Ankh would not be part of a building. What is this actually? I don't know what the Ankh is classified as. Just give me a moment. Writings? You know what? Ankh Symbol Gardener. S34. Okay. S, what is that? Crown's dress state. I thought we saw this one already. Uh-oh. I don't... Oh, there we go. I am totally blind. Okay. So, now that we've picked the correct symbols, let's see the translation. So let's go auto-translate. Auto-translate, auto-translate. Uh-oh. Okay. The translation is, here we go. So, we're starting to get something here. It picked up this sequence to be King of Lower Egypt. So, King of Lower Egypt, to be King of Lower Egypt. I guess this is Northern Egypt. I don't know if the Sej is Northern Egypt, but it also picked up more words. That's bread. So, to be fair, this isn't a terrible translation. It knows that it's a Lord, King of Lower Egypt. It's missing Upper Egypt and, Lord of the Two Lands. But that's not bad. And then this one, Symbol of Life. You have half a translation. It didn't even try and figure out what this first one is. And I feel like it's just breaking it apart. Like, this is a terrible translation. At least, to be King of Lower Egypt is joining multiple glyphs together. Anyways, you can annotate it. You can do some properties. But I think this will be a really good tool in the future. Everybody knows how machine learning works. You start off with a data set. It makes predictions. It does all of these things. And what's important is you feed it back. So every time I correctly put in a glyph, hopefully Fabricius is learning over time that this is the sedge. And so what I'm trying to say is I'm sure they had a very hard time finding a lot of people to classify these glyphs. They didn't have, like facial recognition, a data set of millions and millions and millions of people. Instead, they just have, how many people can possibly do this? So I think this is more of a time thing rather than a money thing. So over time, hopefully it'll learn to be better. This translation tool, though, I just can't see it working out very well. They're not going to get a lot of people translating. But the tool itself is very, very cool. It's very helpful. And if its auto-classified glyph is really good, this may be a really good way to bring some ancient Egyptians' drawings, writings, whatever, into the digital world. So, yeah. So that is Fabricius. Now, why we're actually... Oh, jeez, we're at 26 minutes already. You see, I am so excited about these tools. I am so excited about Ancient Egypt. I just keep talking and talking. But the other thing I care a lot about is his coding. So what's good is this is coming from Google. So it looks like they took the time to put in a README. They have a license available. So they have documented it properly. Now, the first thing to note when looking at this is, well, let's look at the README first. This is the Fabricius project. This is the workbench. Okay, so this is the workbench itself. That's why it is primarily TypeScript, JavaScript, primarily TypeScript. SCSS is a styling format, and then HTML and JavaScript. So obviously, this is the website itself. Over here in dependencies, they've actually linked to 3 other dependencies. And I think these are the heavy lifting tools I'm interested in. There's obviously a lot to learn if we look into these tools. Into the web page itself, but I'm less interested in that. But let's take a look anyways. The workbench, because it's TypeScript, everything is in the source. TypeScript is a superset of JavaScript. What that means is you write in TypeScript, and the whole idea is you get more structure, you get a better syntax. But ultimately what it is just, it translates to JavaScript. And so you have this source folder, and once you run TypeScript, it spits out another set of files, which are JavaScript files. Now, in all honesty, like I rarely touch TypeScript, but I know it is incredibly useful. So here is the index page, and I think this is where you get not very much app root. So they are using some sort of, they're using Angular. And then styles. Oh, here's the app itself. Here's the core. Okay. Browser detect, footer, header. So they split it all up. And then I think the utilities is probably, yeah, okay. So I did something similar way back. Web pages, if you want to draw on them, they have this canvas element, and then you can add the pixels, and it's really useful in machine learning because you would store an image in Canvas and manipulate it, because machine learning really heavily depends on a good data set. And what's really helpful is standardizing all of that data. So for example, if I have hieroglyphs, okay, this image of a quail right here, it's not helpful for the machine to see this one is in black and white, this one's painted white, this one is painted black, and this one's on a rock. So it has all sorts of shine or I guess, texture to it. The machine will have a very hard time figuring out what exactly makes it a quail. On the other hand, if you standardize it so that it's all just the edges and it's all black and white, it all looks the same, it'll start to understand, okay, these minor variations don't matter. It's just the edge, this black and white shape. And so what I think they're doing, well, what we saw it doing was change it to a black and white image. You modify the contrast to make it appear really good. And it's doing this using the canvas. So it is over here. Well, you are getting a file, you're getting the image data, it's being spit onto the canvas, and I think you're going to manipulate the canvas afterwards. Okay. API. Okay, this is probably where it comes in. API service. And then it links to the different ones. Classification modal, confirm classification model, identification model. So I think classification is what they used. This is the one I'm really interested in. Classified glyphs. Okay. Well, that's not really helpful. So it's formatting it properly and then sending it over to the right API, to the right URL. Okay. So the API is doing all the heavy lifting. There are multiple options here. What is the tool here? TensorFlow. TensorFlow is a machine learning library. I'm sure there are different ones, but one of the really useful things about TensorFlow is that it's available on computer, on phones, and so on. And one option for machine learning is to do it in the user's browser. So how do I say this? You can either send data to Google through an API, and Google will do the machine learning, like their classification on their servers, or you can send the machine learning weights, so how you've trained it, over the internet so that the end user does the classification, and you can use TensorFlow JavaScript to run it on a web browser. The files are really not that big. Like, it takes weeks, months, years to train a proper model, but the file itself is usually not all that big, actually. So it's entirely feasible for them to just send over those weights and have you do the classification on your computer. They have opted not to do that. Where was I? Okay, enough with the workbench. We have the classifier, we have the translation, and the cluster analysis. I think the cluster analysis is really interesting as well. The translation is just horrible. Like, I just don't care. I don't think they have a good data set. I don't think they've done a good job of, well, I don't want to say they haven't done a good job of training it. I'm sure they have. They just don't have the necessary data to do it. Like, for God's sakes, we can't even translate from English to French or English to Japanese very well. So, and we have oodles and oodles of information on that. So let's skip that. Cluster analysis. So I do note that all three of them were using Python. Python is the language for data scientists, so that's not too surprising. And they threw up a Docker file too for the classification. I don't know what Smarty is. I have no clue what Smarty is. Smarty. PHP template engine. I have, oh no, that probably isn't. Let's see, GitHub. I guess that is a template language. I have no clue why that's there. But enough of that. Let's look at the classifier first. That was what I'm really interested in. They have given us a Docker file, which means we can figure out what they're using. And that's entirely unhelpful. We know that they're using Python 3.7. I don't think that makes a difference. And then the dependencies are already in their requirements.txt file. So that's not really all that helpful. Let's take a look at Cloud Build. This is a file to help figure out how your environment, like what you run on your environment. And this doesn't look very helpful either. And let's see, package. Okay, that's for Docker. That's not really helpful. So let's look at the source. They have requirements, and ooh, this is a pretty long list. They have a whole bunch of Google APIs, clouds, whatever. Unicorn, HTTP. These are, like, to me, it looks like they are setting up the API. Oh, we have Flask and Flask cores as well. So they're creating a very simple web server. Again, this fits API. And that's probably why they have that Smarty PHP engine. Markup safe. I don't know what these are. Requests. So a lot of these are looking like tools to help that API. Now, we have a main.py Python. We have a test folder. Okay, it looks like they are actually testing it. So main test, so they're running through, I think this is like the test code, make sure that works. Okay, so we have classification, mock prediction, main test, so setup, request to unknown URL, so they're checking if everything works. How this looks when there's a request with an incorrect HTTP method, all of this is, like, there's not a lot in here. And then init, that doesn't help. Utils. Okay. Oh, that's cool. That might be helpful. Not here, but let's look at the main file. Okay, so they have all this about coding. No, this is kind of messy. We have Flask, we have Pill, which is for the image. I don't know what this workzerg is, but let's Google that up. Is a tool. Okay, WSGI web application library. Okay, so it's very much for networking as well. Oh, Flask wraps around. So it's to help deploy Flask. Okay, so we have weights. Okay, so just looking at this, this is the file. This is the code to try and train the data, I think. But let's keep scrolling down. Oh, this is the API request, require JSON, blah, 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 create a file name, upload image. Okay, so they are doing Flask to create an API. And over here, they have classification. So they're sending the image over. Remember, this is our black and white image. I think they've already isolated a single file, like a single glyph for them to determine. They look for their project and location. They load in the model. They try and get the weights. So you remember how I'm saying everything is standardized? They're standardizing the image into a base 64 coded image, so a set of bytes. I don't know why you would do that. Like, I don't know enough about base 64, but if you're doing any sort of image, you would want to flatten the image and turn it into a series. Since it's black and white, turn it into a series of zeros and ones. Basically make it really obvious. Maybe this encoding makes it smaller and easier to train. I don't know why you would do that. But you want clean code that makes it really easy to have a pattern. If you start compressing it and like you're making it harder. If you have an image and you make it super easy, not compressed, just a series of ones and zeros, or in most images, color images, you break it down into a series of colors, so RGB colors. That makes it really easy for the computer to draw patterns, but I don't know. They obviously know what they're doing a lot more than I do. And then they're using a prediction client, AutoML v1 beta. So they're reaching into a client, they're sending the payload, and then they're getting a prediction back. And then once they do, they get the prediction back. Okay, I'm gonna admit I am highly, highly disappointed here. Like, this is very, very useless. Hang on, let me just take a look here. Train high quality by leveraging, okay. AutoML model. Oh no, okay, so that's not fair. They are going in and saying, so they're not using TensorFlow, they're using Google's own machine learning tool. They are reaching into their own system's AutoML project. So that means it is being locally, like the prediction is being made locally. For a moment, I thought it's being sent to Google, practically just another API. So their API reaches into another API to get the prediction. I thought that was pointless. But no, they are generating it. AutoML model. So let me just take a look. I still think this may be not very useful, but let me just confirm. Oh, TPL. Yeah, okay. Okay, this is very disappointing. So what I'm looking at here is they have this main.py, and it's all referring to this local file AutoML project, which they've obviously trained over time. Might I add, I don't think the results were particularly good. But they're reaching into this local file to get you the resources. Now, the code they open source is not useful at all. They are not breaking any new ground by doing this. What would have been really useful to the community is either one, release your data sets, all of the files available so that someone like me can try and train my own machine learning model. Probably wouldn't be as good as them, but still, I mean, that would be very helpful. Now, you know, privacy, intellectual property rights, I'm sure has all sorts of problems. The other alternative is to share the machine learning weights you were able to gain. Like, you have aggregated it, you have anonymized it, like there's nothing there that people can claim ownership to. And so you can hand that file over. And so I can do the predictions on my own machine and try and build it into my own app. But right now, they have basically given us a skeleton of, okay, you get the file, you run it through an engine, we're pointing it at this nebulous, non-existent ML project, and then it should spit out an answer. Like, that's not helpful. You're not providing anything useful. Now, they didn't show us how they trained it. They didn't show us, you know, the results of their training. This essentially is not useful. Now, let me just take a look here. See if cluster. Okay, their cluster is much more interesting. There's a lot more to it. So the other one, you just basically took a PNG image and made that classification. It looks like for the cluster analysis, they're trying to do some calculations already on the boundaries. And remember, we had the ability to change the clusters a little bit. I don't know what these are. Ooh, models. Oh, no, these are that. Okay, so the cluster analysis has the same problems. Like, they're giving us a framework, and at least this one is a little more interesting. Like, I can't wrap my head immediately around what they're doing, but they're clearly doing a lot more math. And I think what they're trying to do is try and sort the answers back and forth. But that's just my gut feeling and based on the names quickly. But again, they're missing the weights, they're missing the data set. Like, this is not helpful to me. It has given me no additional tools to work with. Okay. See, I had a feeling that it wouldn't be easy to build a project with what they've released open source. I just didn't realize that what they would hand over is so underwhelming. Anyways, I will be keeping an eye on all of these because I have been watching since 2017. And I'm hoping they're going to provide more than this. But I don't know if they will. This is disappointing. Like, where are the weights? Where are the weights? Where's the data? All right. Hopefully you guys learned something about how you pick apart an open source project and just read through somebody else's code. Maybe you learned something about ancient Egypt. I did ramble on for quite a while, but that ends it for a very long episode of Unscripted Coding. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you didn't, definitely leave me a comment. I am more than happy to try and produce videos that you will enjoy. So thanks for watching.